In the intricate world of international diplomacy and trade, negotiations worth billions of dollars can hinge on the smallest of details. Today, on October 27, 2025, we are witnessing a stark illustration of this reality. High-stakes trade talks between the United States and Canada have been abruptly suspended. This is not the result of a deadlock over tariffs or market access. Instead, it's the unexpected fallout from a political advertisement. The United States Trade Delegation has officially paused all discussions, citing an ad produced by the government of Ontario. The ad featured the words of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan. American officials called it inappropriate and offensive. That reaction triggered a diplomatic chill threatening to freeze crucial economic progress. The decision marks an unusual escalation. The U.S. said the ad showed a profound lack of judgment, forcing them to reconsider the good faith basis for negotiations. At the heart of this diplomatic firestorm is a political advertisement. It attempted to draw a parallel between the past and the present. The ad, created by the government of Ontario, featured archival audio from a speech delivered by former President Ronald Reagan. In the original context, Reagan's words were part of his broader vision for economic freedom and prosperity. Ontario repurposed this audio to frame its economic policies, seemingly to add historical weight and conservative credibility. It targeted a campaign against taxes and tariffs. The ad's creators likely hoped to evoke a sense of shared principles by leveraging Reagan's iconic status. However, the use of a former U.S. president's voice in a Canadian campaign was immediately viewed as a serious overstep in Washington. It was perceived not as a respectful homage, but as a manipulative political tactic. U.S. officials objected to co-opting Reagan's legacy in a foreign domestic debate, with implications for negotiations. The context was stripped away, souring cooperation. Adding significant weight to the American position was the swift reaction from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. The foundation, guardian of Reagan's legacy, issued a formal statement clarifying it had not granted permission. It strongly objected to the ad, stating the use was unauthorized and inconsistent with their intended meaning. This public denouncement from a respected institution provided the U.S. government with powerful validation. It effectively cornered the Ontario government and amplified diplomatic pressure. The core issue was not merely content, but the perceived transgression of unspoken diplomatic norms. National leaders carry potent symbolism and their legacies are carefully guarded. By borrowing Reagan's voice, the ad's producers stumbled into a minefield of political sensitivities. The result was a powerful backlash, showing how a message can be lost in translation as it crosses borders, especially when the stakes, like a major trade agreement, are incredibly high. The response from Washington was both immediate and decisive, signaling zero tolerance for a diplomatic foul. Shortly after the ad gained traction, the Reagan Foundation voiced its objection. The Office of the United States Trade Representative announced the suspension of all ongoing trade talks with Canada. The statement said the ad made productive, good-faith negotiations impossible. This was more than a procedural pause, it was a clear political signal. By halting the talks, the U.S. put the bilateral trade file on hold until the issue was resolved to its satisfaction. The firm's stance sent a message to Ottawa, to Ontario, and to other international partners. Officials called the ad a stunning lack of judgment and an insulting use of a beloved president's legacy. Beyond suspension, reports warned of punitive measures, the most prominent threat, a potential new 10% tariff on Canadian goods. Washington's two-step. First, suspend talks to create pressure. Second, threaten tariffs as an economic lever before negotiations could resume. On the Canadian side, the reaction unfolded on two levels, the provincial government in Ontario and the federal government in Ottawa. Initially, Ontario officials argued Reagan's audio was from a public speech, intended to highlight a philosophical point for a domestic audience. That defense quickly proved untenable as pressure mounted. Faced with a formal objection and a nationwide halt to trade talks, the province pulled the controversial ad from television and online platforms. This reversal tacitly admitted a miscalculation. While short of a full apology, removing the ad was a necessary step toward de-escalation. Meanwhile, the federal government responded with measured calm and urgency, emphasizing the profound importance of U.S.-Canada trade. Behind the scenes, diplomats worked to smooth feathers and chart a path back to talks, stressing dialogue and confidence that the misunderstanding could be resolved. Ottawa aimed to guide the situation away from escalation and toward a more cautious, constructive dialogue. The threat of a new 10% tariff cast a long shadow. Tariffs are powerful, often blunt instruments in trade policy. By making imported goods more expensive, they protect domestic industries, but often cause a cascade of unintended consequences. For the deeply integrated US-Canada economy, broad tariffs would be especially disruptive. Costs would rise for American companies relying on Canadian raw materials, components, and finished products, auto parts, aluminum, lumber, agricultural goods. Consumers often see those costs as higher prices. Past conflicts in softwood lumber, dairy, and steel led to retaliation that hurt both sides. This threat feels different, politically driven, less predictable, and harder to unwind than a balance sheet dispute. With parts crossing the border multiple times, a new tariff would jam logistics, increase paperwork, and unsettle manufacturers and industry groups urging swift resolution. This episode unfolds amid wider shifts in global trade and pressing domestic politics. Canada has been diversifying trade to reduce dependence on the United States. Pursuits in Asia and Europe offer potential, but cannot replace the U.S. market's scale, proximity, or integration overnight. Many industries are built around North American supply chains. Switching buyers or suppliers isn't simple. While diversification is a long-term goal, the immediate priority is stabilizing relations with the United States. In America, hardline stances and tariff threats can project strength to voters. Pausing talks over the perceived misuse of a former president's legacy resonates as a matter of national pride. Legal frameworks, WTO, and bilateral panels loom in the background. Prolonged impasse could trigger formal challenges. Observers ask, will this remain diplomacy or escalate to legal rulings that prolong uncertainty? As markets watch, every statement can shift the path forward. The immediate impact is a cloud of uncertainty hanging over businesses and consumers across North America. For ordinary people, the most direct effect could be higher prices. If a 10% tariff lands, costs for groceries, building materials, cars, and consumer goods would likely rise. Retaliatory tariffs would make U.S. goods more expensive in Canada. With inflation pressures already present, any new price rise is unwelcome. Companies built on predictable cross-border supply chains must consider worst-case scenarios. Manufacturers, farmers, and logistics firms face disruptions, delays, and higher compliance costs. Even a short pause can chill investment and hiring. The swiftest resolution would be a clear gesture from Ontario, an apology or new protocols, met by a U.S. return to talks. Otherwise, tariff escalation risks a costly trade war. In a world of instant communication, a single ad can shake a trillion-dollar relationship, reminding us that trust and respect are the most valuable currencies of all.